Hey guys, tonight we are going to forget the horned helmets, the blood eagles, and the general cinematic mayhem for a moment. Instead, we're going to step into the quiet, repetitive, and often mind-numbingly boring reality of what a Viking actually did all day. You're not a famous jarl or a shield-maiden from a hit TV show. You're just you. A farmer, a craftsperson, a regular person living in 9th century Scandinavia. Your day is not filled with adventure, but with chores. An endless, cyclical, bone-tiring list of chores. Frankly, your biggest battle is probably not against a Saxon shield wall, but against the sheer crushing monotony of it all, and maybe a persistent skin rash. You almost certainly wouldn't survive it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, as you settle into your cozy bed or favourite armchair, and we get ready to dive into tonight's trip into medieval times, I invite you to leave a comment sharing where in the world you're tuning in from, and what time of day it is for you. It's always warming to know how vast our community of nocturnal historians reaches. The first thing you're aware of is not a sight, but a smell. A dense, profound combination of old wood smoke, damp earth, unwashed wool, and the faint, gassy warmth of sleeping livestock. It's an aroma that would send a modern person sprinting for the nearest open window, but for you, it is simply the smell of home. It's the smell of safety. Your eyes flutter open, but it makes little difference. The world is still shrouded in an inky, profound blackness. There is no gentle dawn light filtering through a curtained window, because you have neither curtains, nor for that matter, windows. The only light comes from the faint orange-red heart of the central fire pit, a collection of embers glowing weakly in the middle of the long, cavernous room. It's not enough to see by, but it's enough to feel. You are lying on a raised wooden platform that runs along the wall of the great hall, the scaly. Your mattress is a sack stuffed with straw or maybe feathers, if you're fortunate, and your blankets are heavy, greasy, woolen hides and a few precious animal pelts. You can feel the rough texture of the wool against your cheek and the draft of cold air that slithers through the gaps in the timber walls. It's a persistent, biting cold that seems to ignore the blankets entirely, seeking out any exposed bit of skin. You pull the furs up to your chin and listen. The longhouse is breathing around you. It's a living thing, full of soft, rhythmic sounds. You can hear the slow, deep breaths of your family members sleeping on the platforms beside you and across the hall. The rustle of a restless sleeper, a muffled cough, the quiet, almost inaudible sigh of your father. Farther down the hall, where the building extends beyond the human living quarters, you hear the soft stamp of a hoof on the earthen floor, the low snuffle of a cow. That's right. Your retirement plan is currently sleeping about 40 feet away. During the harshest months of winter, the most valuable livestock are brought inside to share the relative warmth of the longhouse, a decision that is both practical for their survival and aromatically challenging for yours. You lie still, trying to cling to the last vestiges of sleep. There is no alarm clock, no rooster crowing just yet. Your body, deeply attuned to the rhythms of light and labour, knows the sun is still well below the horizon. This is the quietest the world will be all day. In a few moments, the first person will stir, likely your mother or another senior woman of the household. She will rise silently, a shadow moving against the dim glow of the embers, and begin the first task of the day, coaxing the fire back to life. It's a sacred and essential duty. The fire is the heart of the home, the source of warmth, light, and cooked food. Letting it die out completely overnight is not just an inconvenience, it feels like a failure, a bad omen. You hear the soft scrape of a small iron poker against the stones of the hearth, the gentle puff of breath as she blows on the glowing coals. A few small, dry twigs are added, and you hear them catch with a satisfying little crackle. The light in the room grows from a dim pulse to a soft, flickering glow, casting long dancing shadows up the soot-blackened wooden posts that hold up the roof. Historians still argue about the precise interior layout of these homes, specifically whether chieftains or powerful families had partitioned off private quarters at one end. But for you, and for most, life is lived in the open. Privacy is a concept as foreign and bizarre as a silent telephone. Every joy, every sorrow, every argument, and every illness is a public affair, witnessed by the 20 or 30 other people who share this single, smoky room with you. For now, though, they are all just sleeping shapes, cocoons of wool and fur in the growing firelight. The air is still cold, but the promise of the renewed fire offers a sliver of comfort. You know you cannot stay here forever. The day, with its endless list of demands, is waiting just outside the heavy wooden door. But for one more moment, you allow yourself the simple luxury of being still, listening to the world waking up around you, one gentle crackle at a time. You swing your legs off the platform, and the cold of the packed earth floor instantly seeps through the thin leather soles of your simple shoes. There is no lounging, no 5 more minutes. The day has begun. You pull on your kirtil, a long woolen tunic that serves as your all-purpose, everyday garment. It's coarse, it smells faintly of wood smoke and sheep, and it's the warmest thing you own. Everyone is beginning to stir now. The quiet breaths have been replaced by the shuffling sounds of a household coming to life. A child coughs. A man groans as he sits up. The gentle murmur of voices begins to fill the space. You nod to your mother as you pass the fire, pausing for just a moment to extend your hands towards the crackling flames. A fleeting and precious moment of warmth that has to last you. Then you turn and head toward the lower end of the hall, the part of the building dedicated to the animals. Historians and archaeologists debate just how much of the longhouse was dedicated to livestock versus humans, and whether a solid wall always separated the two. For your family, it's a simple low partition of wattle, not quite a wall, doing little to contain the smells or sounds. Here, the earthen floor is softer, mixed with old straw and other things. The air is thick with the scent of hay and manure, an aroma you've known your entire life. 2 cows, the family's most prized possessions, look at you with wide, placid eyes. A few sheep are penned in a smaller section, their woolly bodies huddled together for warmth. Your first job is milking. You grab a wooden bucket, squat down on a 3-legged stool beside the nearest cow, and lean your forehead against her warm, coarse flank. She shifts her weight, but doesn't move away, accustomed to this daily rhythm. Your fingers, already stiff with cold, begin the familiar work. The first streams of milk ring against the bottom of the empty bucket, a sharp, metallic sound. Then, as the bucket fills, the sound softens to a gentle, rhythmic hissing. This is a moment of profound quiet and focus. It's just you, the cow, and the steady, warm flow of milk. This milk, and the cheese and butter made from it, is the backbone of your diet. This single animal represents an enormous portion of your family's net worth. In your world, the Old Norse word for cattle, fey, is the very same word used for wealth and money. When you look at this cow, you are looking at your bank account, your insurance policy, and your dinner, all chewing its cud with serene indifference. Once the milking is done, you give both cows an armful of precious hay, carefully rationed to last the winter. Then it's time to face the world outside. You join your brother at the main door, a massive slab of wood braced with iron. He pulls back the heavy wooden bar that locks it, and together you swing the door inward. A wall of frigid, damp air rushes in, carrying the scent of pine and frozen earth. For a moment, the fire gutters and smoke swirls through the longhouse, making everyone cough. The world outside is not black anymore, but a deep, bruised purple. The sky is just beginning to pale in the east, and a few lonely stars still glitter overhead. There's no glorious sunrise, just a slow, reluctant leaking of grey light into the world. Your breath plumes in front of you in a thick white cloud. You trudge out into the yard, the frozen mud crunching under your feet. First, the water trough. A thick layer of ice, an inch deep, has formed overnight. You grab a heavy stick left for this very purpose and begin to smash it, the sharp cracks echoing in the still morning air. The livestock outside more sheep, a few goats, and a hardy-looking pony watch you with impatient interest. Once they can drink, you move on to the next task. Fodder. You climb a wooden ladder to the small loft above the byre, a separate shelter for the rest of the animals, and begin pitching hay down into their pens. It's hard, repetitive work. Your shoulders begin to ache with the familiar strain, and bits of dry grass and dust shower down, sticking to your hair and tunic. And then comes the highlight of every Viking farmer's morning. Mucking out. Someone has to clear the manure from the byre and from the animal end of the longhouse. Today, that someone is you. It's a job that requires no skill, just a strong back and a weak sense of smell. You take a wide wooden shovel and a rickety wheelbarrow and get to work. It's heavy, it's smelly, and it's endless. The steam rises from the dark wet piles of muck into the cold air. This isn't a scene that will ever be carved onto a rune stone. No skald will ever compose a saga titled The Grand Tale of Eric and the Enormous Pile of Dung. But it is, without question, one of the most essential jobs on the farm. This manure isn't waste. It's future food. It will be spread on the hayfields and vegetable patches in the spring, completing the cycle of life and ensuring your family has enough to eat next winter. It's a deeply humbling, profoundly important task, and right now all you can think about is how much your back already hurts. The sun isn't even fully up yet. With the animal chores finally out of the way, your stomach is beginning to rumble. You return to the longhouse, where the air is now thick with the smell of smoke and something cooking. A large iron cauldron hangs over the fire on a heavy chain, and a thin, soupy porridge is bubbling away inside. This is dagatha, the day meal. It's the first of the two main meals you'll eat today. You grab a rough wooden bowl and a horn spoon, and your mother ladles you out a portion. It's made of oats or barley, boiled in water, or the fresh milk you just collected, and maybe, if you're lucky, sweetened with a tiny spoonful of precious honey. It's bland, it's lumpy, but it's warm and filling, and you eat it quickly, standing by the fire. There's no sitting around the family table for a leisurely breakfast. Time is a resource as valuable as firewood, and the best light of the day is already wasting. As soon as you've scraped the last of the porridge from your bowl, you're pulling on a heavier outer cloak and heading for the fields. For much of the year, this is where you will spend the majority of your waking hours. Your family's farm, your land, is not a vast expanse of golden wheat like you might see in a movie. It's a small, hard-won patch of arable land, cleared from the surrounding forest and fjord slopes, and ringed by low stone walls or simple wattle fences to keep the deer out and the sheep in. The type of work depends entirely on the season. If it's early spring, the ground is cold and heavy, still recovering from the winter frost. You'll be guiding a simple wooden plough, an ard, pulled by that very same cow you milked a few hours ago, or perhaps a pair of them yoked together. Your father guides the ard, his hands gripping the single handle, his whole body straining to keep the wooden tip digging a straight furrow in the stony soil. Your job is to walk ahead of the cow, goading it onward with a long stick and a series of encouraging clicks and calls. It's slow, back-breaking work. Every few feet, the ard snags on a rock or a thick root, and you have to stop, wrestle it free, and start again. Your world shrinks to the muddy ground in front of you, the plodding, rhythmic gait of the animal, and the creak of the leather harness. By the end of the day, your legs and arms will be trembling with exhaustion. If it's summer, the days are gloriously long, stretching late into the night. But that doesn't mean more rest for you. It means more work. You'll be bent over for hours, weeding the precious crops of barley, oats, rye, and perhaps a few hardy vegetables like cabbage, beans, and onions. There are no pesticides, no shortcuts. Every single weed must be pulled by hand. The sun beats down on your neck, sweat drips into your eyes, and the endless green rows seem to stretch on for miles. It's here that you come to truly understand patience. Then comes the harvest in late summer and early autumn, the most frantic and crucial time of the year. The entire family, from the youngest children who can walk to the oldest grandparents, will be out in the fields from sunrise to sunset. You'll use a short, curved iron sickle to cut the stalks of grain, bundling them into sheaves and tying them off. It's a race against the weather. A single, ill-timed storm of rain or hail could ruin the entire year's crop and condemn your family to a winter of starvation. The atmosphere is tense, focused, a frantic burst of communal effort. You work until your hands are raw and your back feels like it's about to snap in too. The only sounds are the rhythmic swish-swish of dozens of sickles cutting through the stalks and the occasional shout to pass a water skin. And even in winter, the farm's demands don't cease. While the fields lie dormant under a blanket of snow, there is still work. Fences need mending, tools need repairing. You'll spend days with a mallet and wedges, splitting logs for the fire that must be kept burning at all costs. You'll thresh the harvested grain on the floor of a barn, beating the stalks with a wooden flail to separate the grain from the chaffer, dusty, monotonous, yet vital task. One of the quirks of your Viking life is your reliance on what archaeologists call infield-outfield, or shielding systems. In the summer, you might have to spend weeks or months away from the main farmstead, taking the livestock to graze on higher altitude pastures miles away, living in a small, temporary hut. It's a lonely, isolated existence, but essential for preserving the precious hayfields back at the main farm for winter fodder. It is a life dictated not by a king's command or a desire for glory, but by the slow, unyielding cycle of the sun and the soil. You are a farmer. Your battle is with the earth, your victory is a full storehouse, and your enemy is the coming winter. While you and your father are out wrestling with the very soil for your survival, a different kind of power is being wielded back at the longhouse. If you picture Viking society as a great ship, the men may be the ones at the oars, but it's the women who are at the helm, steering the vessel through treacherous waters. The longhouse, the farm, the very heart of your world, is the domain of the Hnefatafl lady of the house. This isn't a gentle domestic role, it's one of immense authority, responsibility, and relentless work. As you toil in the field, your mother, the Hnefatafl, is not resting. Her day started before yours, with the revival of the fire, and her tasks are just as physically demanding and arguably more complex. After the morning porridge, she immediately turns to food processing. That milk you collected doesn't last long. It must be churned into butter in a tall, plunging churn, a task that requires a steady, hypnotic rhythm and incredible stamina. Or it's curdled with rennet, pressed, and salted to be turned into wheels of hard cheese that can last through the long winter. This isn't just cooking, it's food preservation, the most critical science of your time. A failure in salting the fish or drying the meat could be catastrophic. Her realm extends far beyond the kitchen. She is the finance minister of this small kingdom. A fascinating and powerful symbol of her authority is the set of keys she wears, dangling from a chain or a string of beads attached to the tortoise-shell brooches on her shoulders. These keys unlock the wooden chests and storehouses where all the family's valuables are kept. The dried grains, the salted meats and fish, the bolts of woven cloth, and any precious silver or heirlooms. Access to these resources is controlled entirely by her. No one, not even your father, the master of the farm, would dare take from the storeroom without her permission. These keys are such a potent symbol of female authority that they are frequently found in the graves of high-status women, a clear indicator to the gods and the community of the power she held in life. She is also the quartermaster. She keeps a meticulous mental inventory of everything the family owns and everything it needs. She knows precisely how much flour is left, how many bundles of wool are ready for spinning, and how many more days the salt pork will last. Based on this, she directs the labour of the entire household. She'll set the younger children to less strenuous tasks, gathering firewood, fetching water from the well or stream, or foraging in the woods for berries, nuts, and edible mushrooms. She'll oversee the older daughters and other women in the endless tasks of spinning wool into thread and weaving that thread into cloth. Her role is also that of the primary physician and pharmacist. The longhouse has a small herb garden just outside the door, and it's her knowledge, passed down through generations of women, that dictates its contents. She knows which herbs can soothe a cough, which poultices can be applied to a cut to prevent infection, and which plants can help ease the pain of childbirth. Historians debate the full extent of this folk medicine, but sagas and archaeological finds suggest a complex understanding of herbal remedies. When someone in the family falls ill, it is she who becomes the nurse, tending to them with a practical, no-nonsense expertise. There are no hospitals, no clinics. There is only her skill, standing between a simple infection and a fatal illness. Furthermore, she is the guardian of the family's honour and social standing. She manages the hospitality that is so central to your culture, ensuring that any guest who arrives at your door is given food, drink, and a place to sleep by the fire. A family's reputation could be built or broken on the quality of its welcome. When your father brings home a friend or a passing trader, it is your mother who orchestrates the whole performance of a prosperous and well-run household. And she does all this while likely being pregnant or nursing a young child. Viking women married young and had many children, and managing a large, chaotic, and demanding family was just one more thread in the complex tapestry of her responsibilities. So, as you wipe sweat from your brow in the midday sun, remember the husfreyja back home. She is not just keeping house, she is running a complex, multifaceted corporation with unrelenting demands, armed with a set of keys, an encyclopedic knowledge of her resources, and an authority that is absolute within the walls of the longhouse. Not every man in your world is a farmer, forever bound to the soil. In your village, or perhaps a short walk away, is a place of profound transformation, a building that glows and rings with a special kind of magic. This is the smithy. Step inside and you are immediately overwhelmed. The air is thick with the acrid stench of burning coal and hot metal. The heat is intense, a dry, oppressive wall that makes you sweat instantly even on a cold day. And the sounds are a constant, rhythmic clamour. The whoosh and roar of the bellows, the sharp percussive clang of hammer on iron, the hiss of hot metal plunged into water. At the centre of this controlled chaos is the smith. He is a figure of immense respect and, in some ways, fear. He is a master of fire and iron, a man who can take a lump of dull, lifeless rock bog iron, painstakingly harvested from acidic peat bog sand, turn it into a tool that can build a house, or a weapon that can end a life. You watch him work, and it's like watching a dance. He stands before the forge, a deep hearth filled with glowing charcoal. His assistant, often a young apprentice, pumps the bellows through large leather bags that force a steady stream of air into the heart of the fire, raising its temperature to an incandescent white-hot heat. The smith uses a long pair of iron tongs to pull a piece of metal from the fire's core. It glows with a brilliant, sunny light, a captive piece of the sun itself. He moves with a swift, practiced economy of motion, swinging the glowing iron from the forge to the anvil, a massive block of stone or iron that is the smithy's altar. And then the hammering begins. Clang! He strikes the metal with a heavy hammer, his arm a blur of motion. Clang! 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 Sparks fly with every blow, a shower of tiny, burning stars that sizzle as they land on the damp earth floor. He is not just beating the metal into submission, he is shaping it, folding it, working with its very nature. He turns it with the tongs, strikes it from another angle, his eye judging the shape and thickness, with a skill born of years of practice. The creation of something as seemingly simple as a knife blade is a testament to his art. One of the signature techniques of your time is pattern welding. The smith takes several thin bars of iron, some with a higher carbon content than others, and forges them together. He heats them, hammers them, and then twists them, like wringing out a wet cloth. Then he folds the twisted bar back on itself and hammers it flat again. He might repeat this process multiple times, creating an incredibly complex, layered internal structure. This isn't just for show, though the final blades will have beautiful, watery patterns on their surface that look like flowing water or wood grain. The process combines the flexibility of soft iron with the hardness and sharp, edge-holding ability of high-carbon steel, creating a blade that is both strong and resilient. It's a sophisticated metallurgical technique that produces some of the most legendary swords and tools of the age. Historians and modern blacksmiths who have tried to replicate these methods are in awe of the skill involved. To achieve a successful forge weld, the smith had to judge the temperature by colour alone, knowing the precise moment when the iron was hot enough to fuse but not so hot that it would burn and crumble. He is a practical chemist, a physicist, and an artist, all in one. His work is not just about strength, but also precision. After forging a new axe head, he must carefully heat treat it, a process scholars still debate the exact methods of. He heats the cutting edge to a precise temperature and then quenches it in water or oil. This rapid cooling hardens the steel, making it brittle but capable of holding a razor-sharp edge. Then, he must temper it, carefully reheating it to a much lower temperature to reduce the brittleness and add toughness. A mistake in either step, a few degrees too hot, a second too long in the quench hand, the axe head will be useless. Either too soft to hold an edge, or so brittle it shatters on the first swing. He makes everything. The nails for the ships, the hooks for the cauldron, the hinges for the doors, the sickles for the harvest, the needles for sewing, the fish hooks for the fjord. The entire material culture of your society rests on his anvil. You stand there in the doorway of the smithy, mesmerized by the hypnotic rhythm of the hammer and the fiery transformation of the iron. The smith doesn't create out of nothing, like a god. He takes what the earth gives him and, with fire, sweat, and knowledge, elevates it. It's a grimy, deafening, and exhausting job. But as you watch the dull bar of iron slowly take the shape of a familiar, essential tool, you understand why the smith is seen as one of the most powerful and indispensable members of your community. The sun has reached its zenith, a pale wafer in the vast, open sky. Out in the fields, your stomach has started to protest again. Your body, burning through the morning's porridge, is demanding more fuel. This signals it's time for the natturtha, the night meal, which, despite its name, is eaten in the middle of the day. There's no grand signal, no town bell. The length of the shadows and the grumbling in your belly are all the clocks you need. Work in the field pauses. You don't trudge all the way back to the longhouse. That would waste too much precious time and energy. Instead, someone, perhaps one of the older children, brings the meal out to you. Don't imagine a picturesque picnic with a checkered blanket and a wicker basket. The reality is far more utilitarian. You sit on a rock or simply squat on the ground, grateful for the chance to rest your aching back. The meal is brought in a covered wooden bucket or a large pot. Today's special is stew. It's almost always stew. The centrepiece of Viking Age cuisine is the ever-simmering cauldron that hangs over the central fire back home. The stew, known as chores, is the ultimate expression of your culture's pragmatism and aversion to waste. What's in it? The better question is, what isn't in it? The base is water, thickened with the same grains you had for breakfast barley, oats or rye. To this is added whatever is available. Yesterday's leftover fish, some tough cuts of mutton or goat, maybe a bit of beef if there was a recent slaughter for a feast. This is supplemented with a medley of hardy root vegetables pulled from the garden, turnips, carrots, which at this time were often purple or white, not orange, and onions. Foraged greens might be tossed in for good measure things you'd recognise as weeds, like nettles or sorrel. Historians often refer to this as a perpetual stew. The pot was rarely emptied completely. Each day, new ingredients and more water were simply added to the remnants of the previous day's meal. This creates a complex, ever-evolving flavour, but also means some of the bits of meat at the bottom could be, to put it gently, antiques. You receive your portion in the same simple wooden bowl from breakfast which you carry with you. There's no fork, an invention far in your future. You have your horn or wooden spoon for the soupy parts, and a personal knife, your sea-axe, which you carry on your belt at all times. You use the knife to spear the larger chunks of meat and vegetables. Alongside the stew, you'll have a chunk of dense, dark bread. This isn't light, fluffy bread. It's a heavy, flat loaf, often made with barley or rye flour, as wheat is a fussy crop that doesn't grow well in your climate. It's coarse, chewy, and perfect for mopping up the last of the stew in your bowl, ensuring not a single calorie goes to waste. To drink, you have a skin of water, or, more likely, a weak, low-alcohol ale or mead. It's not for getting tipsy in the middle of a workday. Instead, the fermentation process makes it safer to drink than water from a potentially contaminated stream. It's a source of hydration and extra calories. While you might associate Vikings with grand feasts and overflowing drinking horns, your daily reality is far more sober and far less varied. The flavours are earthy and mild. The dominant seasonings are salt, which is a valuable commodity, and perhaps a few homegrown herbs like dill, coriander, or mustard seed. Spices from the east are fantastically expensive, reserved for the wealthiest chieftains to show off at feasts. Your daily food is about fuel, not flavour. One of the odder culinary facts of your life involves dairy. You eat plenty of cheese and butter, but a surprisingly fringe product, something you only find in certain regions, is skyer. It's a fermented milk product, technically a type of cheese, but with a consistency like thick yogurt. It's made by heating skim milk and adding a bit of old skyer as a starter culture, and it's an incredibly efficient way to preserve milk proteins. You sit there, chewing your tough bread and scooping your bland stew, a meal that is virtually identical to the one you had yesterday and the one you will have tomorrow. It's not exciting. It's not a culinary adventure. But as the warmth of the food spreads through your body, dulling the ache in your muscles and silencing your protesting stomach, you feel a sense of profound, simple gratitude. This stew is survival. It's the reason you have the strength to stand up, pick up your sickle or your spade, and get back to work under the afternoon sun. Life on the farm is not all toil and isolation. You live in a community, and communities, whether they are in a gleaming modern metropolis or a scattered collection of 9th century farmsteads, inevitably have disputes. Your cow wanders into your neighbour's hayfield and eats half of it. Your neighbour's poorly built fence collapses and allows his sheep to wander onto your land. Someone accuses you of cutting down trees from a patch of forest that doesn't belong to you. In a world without police forces or a centralised government to enforce rules, how do you solve these problems without resorting to the axe-swinging chaos everyone imagines? The answer lies in one of the most remarkable and sophisticated inventions of your culture: the law and the place where it is upheld, the thing. So, one day, instead of heading to the fields, you, your father, and a few other free men from your area walk to a designated meeting place. This is the local thing, or thying. It's not a building, but an outdoor assembly, often held on a sacred mound, in a prominent field, or under a significant old tree. It's a place where all free people of the district, mostly land-owning male farmer, shall have the right to gather, to speak, and to have their cases heard. The atmosphere is serious, but not sombre. It's a social event as much as a legal one. You see neighbours you haven't seen in weeks, trade news, and arrange future collaborations. At the centre of the proceedings is the law speaker, the logsogamatha. This is an incredibly respected position. The law speaker is not a judge who makes rulings, but a living, breathing legal encyclopedia. In your pre-literate society, the laws are not written down in a great book. They are memorized. The law speaker is required to know every single law of your people by heart, and one of his key duties is to stand before the assembly and recite 1/3 of the entire legal code from memory at each annual meeting, ensuring the law is never forgotten. His knowledge is the ultimate authority. Let's say your neighbour, Bjorn, is accusing you of stealing one of his sheep. He can't just point a finger and demand justice. There's a process, a strict and formal procedure. Bjorn must first summon you to the thing in a very specific way, with witnesses present. When the case is called, you both stand before the assembly. There's no high-powered lawyer in a fancy suit. You represent yourself. Bjorn will state his case, formally and carefully, using the correct legal phrasing. A slip of the tongue could get his case thrown out. Then, it's your turn. You state your defence. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Evidence is important, but what's more important is your social standing and your network of support. To prove your innocence, you will need to produce a number of oath helpers or compurgators. These are your neighbours, friends, and kin who are willing to come forward and swear a legally binding oath on a sacred arm ring, testifying to your good character and that they believe you are telling the truth. The number of oath helpers required depends on the severity of the crime. Historians continue to debate just how much this system relied on pure reputation versus actual evidence, but it's clear that a good name was your most valuable legal asset. If you can't find enough people willing to swear for you, your case is significantly weakened. The assembly, composed of your peers, listens to both sides. They listen to the witnesses and the oath helpers. Then, a panel of judges or leading men of the district will confer and deliver a verdict. If you are found guilty of stealing Bjorn's sheep, you won't be thrown in a dungeon. There are no prisons in your world. The punishment is almost always a fine, a meticulously calculated sum of money or goods, often measured in silver or bolts of homespun cloth. The law codes are incredibly specific about the fines for every imaginable offence, from insulting someone's beard to causing an injury. The goal is not vengeance, but compensation and the restoration of social harmony. Failing to pay the fine, however, is a grave offence and could lead to you being declared an outlaw. This is the Viking Age equivalent of a social death sentence. An outlaw, or skogamatha, forest man, loses all legal rights and protections. Anyone can kill you without punishment, and your property is forfeit. It is a terrifying fate, and a powerful incentive to abide by the thing's judgment. So you stand there, heart pounding, as your fate is decided not by a king or a jarl, but by the very people you live and work with every day. The thing is a surprisingly democratic institution. It's a system built on collective responsibility, public reputation, and a deep-seated belief that a community governed by agreed-upon laws is stronger and more prosperous than one ruled by brute force. It is the quiet, orderly, and deeply civilized backbone that supports your entire society. The sun begins its slow descent, painting the undersides of the clouds in shades of soft gold and grey. The hard labour of the day is done, but your time is not yet your own. There is a period between the main fieldwork and the final meal of the day, a pocket of time filled with smaller, more personal, and often more creative tasks. This is the time for craft. You settle onto a stool by the growing light of the central fire, the main source of illumination as the world outside darkens. You take out your personal knife, the sea axe that hangs from your belt. It's more than a tool for eating or cutting rope. In your hands, it is also an artist's instrument. You pick up a block of wood juniper, perhaps, or birch, or yew. It's a piece you've been seasoning for months, waiting for the right moment, and you begin to carve. The work is quiet, focused, and deeply meditative. You're not trying to create a grand sculpture. You are making something small, useful, and beautiful. Maybe you're carving a new spoon for your mother. You shave off long, thin curls of wood, the blade of your knife making a soft, satisfying shh sound. The fresh scent of the cut wood rises to meet you, clean and resinous. You hold the emerging shape in your hands, feeling the grain, deciding how the handle will curve to fit comfortably in a hand, how the bowl will be hollowed out just so. Viking Age society, which popular culture often paints with a broad, brutish brush, had an astonishingly rich tradition of woodworking and decorative art. It was everywhere. You see it in the intricate, gripping beast patterns carved into the prows of great ships, a tangled web of serpents and dragons that took countless hours of skilled labour. But you also see it in the mundane objects of your daily life. The posts that hold up the roof of your longhouse might be carved with geometric patterns. The back of a chair, the frame of a loom, a small wooden box for holding needles nothing, is left plain if it can be decorated. This wasn't just idle doodling. It was a way of imparting meaning and identity onto the objects that filled your life. The styles are distinct and evolved over time, a fact that modern archaeologists use to date artifacts. You might be carving in the Bore style, with its characteristic knot patterns and ring chains, or perhaps the gelling style, known for its sinuous, shaped animals seen in profile. You don't know these names, of course. You are simply carving in the way your father taught you, the same way his father taught him. You carve looping knots that have no beginning and no end, a visual representation of the interconnectedness of fate and family. You carve stylized animal forms, powerful beasts like bears and wolves, not as realistic portraits, but as distillations of their spirit and strength. Historians often ponder the deeper meaning behind these carvings. Were they purely decorative, or did they have a magical or protective purpose? When you carve an intricate animal head onto the handle of a smoothing border, linen smoother, made of whalebone or glass, used for pressing cloth, are you just making it pretty? Or are you trying to imbue the tool with some kind of power? It's likely a bit of both. The act of beautifying an object honours it, and, in a way, honours the work it will do. It's a mark of respect for the materials and for the process. This quiet art form is not just for men. Women carved as well, often working with softer materials. A truly quirky and often overlooked Viking craft is bone and antler carving. After a cow or deer was butchered, no part of it went to waste. The bones and antlers were a valuable raw material. You could spend an evening carefully carving a new comb from a deer's antler, painstakingly cutting the fine teeth, and then decorating the handle with inscribed circles and lines. You might carve bone gaming pieces for Hnefatafl, or small delicate needles and needle cases. These objects were intensely personal. The comb you use every day, the spoon you eat with, the small charm you wear around your neck, they are all products of your own hands, or the hands of someone in your family. You lose track of time. The rest of the longhouse hums with the low murmur of conversation, the crackle of the fire, the cry of a baby. But in your small bubble of concentration, there is only the wood, the knife, and the emerging shape. Your hands, rough and calloused from a day of farm labour, move with a surprising delicacy and precision. It's a different kind of work, not about strength, but about patience and vision. And when you are done, you hold the finished object in your palm, a simple, humble thing. A wooden spoon, but it is now uniquely yours, bearing the marks of your own creativity. You have not just made a tool, you have made a small piece of art that will be part of the quiet fabric of your family's life. As darkness falls completely outside, the longhouse transforms. The doors are barred for the night, shutting out the cold and the unknown. The fire is built up, its flickering light pushing back the shadows and creating a bubble of warmth and community in the cavernous space. This is when the hard labour is finally over, and for a few precious hours your time is truly your own. It's a time for leisure, for connection, and for staving off the oppressive boredom of the long, dark winter nights. And you have many ways to do it. Tonight, you and your brother decide on a game. You retrieve a worn wooden board, its surface marked with a grid of inscribed squares. This is Hnefatafl, or King's Table, one of the most popular and strategic board games of the Viking Age. It is not a game of equals. It is an asymmetrical game of strategy, a miniature battle enacted on a board. One player has a king piece, the Hnefatafl, in the centre of the board, protected by a small force of defender pieces. The other player has a larger force of attacker pieces, arranged around the edges of the board. The goal of the defender is simple: get the king to one of the corner squares, which represent fortified towns or safe havens. The goal of the attacker is to surround and capture the king. You set up the pieces, carved from bone or wood, or maybe even smooth river stones. You are playing the attackers tonight. Your brother, playing as the king, makes the first move. The game is silent and intense. There is no element of luck, no roll of the dice. It is pure strategy, a game of foresight and sacrifice. You must use your superior numbers to form a blockade, to trap the king and his bodyguards. Your brother, in turn, must skillfully use his defenders to create a path, to break your lines and to orchestrate the king's escape. It's a game that reflects the realities of your world, the importance of a good defence, the tactics of the raid, the vulnerability of a leader. Archaeologists have found game boards and pieces in burial sites all across the Viking world, a testament to how beloved and important this pastime was. It wasn't just for children, it was a serious intellectual exercise for adults. Not every night is for silent, strategic warfare. Sometimes the longhouse is filled with music. Someone takes out a tal harper or a lyre, a simple stringed instrument with a wooden frame. They begin to pluck a simple, repetitive melody, a droning, hypnotic tune that fills the smoky hall. The music is not complex by modern standards, but it is deeply evocative. Someone else might have a flute, carved from the leg bone of a sheep, and they add a high, mournful line over the drone of the strings. While one persistent stereotype is that of Vikings playing bagpipe Pisa, wonderfully strange image, the actual evidence, points to stringed instruments and flutes. The true sound of the Viking Age is a matter of intense musicological debate, but the atmosphere it created was one of shared culture and melancholy beauty. And then there is the most important pastime of all, storytelling. You are a people of the spoken word. Your history, your mythology, your values, they are all contained in the great oral sagas and epic poems. Perhaps a visitor is staying the night, a trader from a distant port, or even a travelling poet, a skald. The whole longhouse will fall silent as he speaks. He doesn't just tell a story, he performs it. His voice rises and falls, capturing the bravado of a hero, the cunning of a god, the sorrow of a grieving widow. He will recite the poetic Edda, telling tales of Odin's quest for wisdom, Thor's battles with giants, and the trickster Loki's endless, troublesome schemes. Or he might tell a family saga, a more historical tale about the settlement of Iceland, or the feuds and fortunes of a great chieftain from generations past. You listen, enthralled, your face illuminated by the firelight. These aren't just entertainment. These stories are your connection to your ancestors, your moral textbook, your evening news, and your greatest work of art all rolled into one. They teach you what it means to be brave, what it means to be honourable, and the dire consequences of arrogance and betrayal. You lean forward, hanging on every word, the game board forgotten, the music faded into the background. The world outside is cold, dark, and silent. But here, inside the longhouse, your world is alive with kings, gods, and giants, all conjured from the memory of the storyteller and the smoke of the central fire. These are the threads that bind your community together through the longest nights of the year. The night is drawing on, but there are a few final rituals before you can retreat to your sleeping platform. And these rituals might come as a surprise to anyone who pictures your people as mud-caked, wild-haired barbarians. The truth is, you are a surprisingly vain and fastidious bunch when it comes to personal grooming. The stereotype of the dirty Viking is largely a product of historical propaganda from the people you raided. After all, it's easier to demonize an enemy if you imagine them as unhygienic savages. But the archaeological and written evidence tells a very different story. You reach into a small leather pouch and pull out one of your most prized personal possessions, your comb. It's not a cheap piece of plastic, but a carefully crafted object made from antler or bone. It is sturdy, with fine teeth on one side and coarser teeth on the other. It might be decorated with intricate ring and dot patterns or carved geometric designs. You sit by the fire and meticulously comb through your hair, untangling the knots from the day's work and freeing it from bits of straw or dust. A clean, well-groomed head of hair is a point of pride. Sagas are full of descriptions of heroes with fine, long hair, often blonde or red. You might even use a special caustic soap with a high lye content to bleach your hair, a practice some Viking men adopted to achieve the fashionable fair-haired look. And it's not just your hair. Beards are a mark of masculinity and honour, and they are given just as much attention. You'll carefully comb your beard, perhaps even trimming it with your sea-axe or a small pair of iron shears. There is a Viking beard style, found in carvings long on the chin, with a trimmed or shaved moustache, but a full, well-kept beard is more common. To insult a man's beard is a grave offence, one that could easily lead to a challenge at the next thing. Then there is the matter of washing. You don't have running water or indoor plumbing, but you do practice regular hygiene. At least once a week, often on Saturday a day, which in all Scandinavian languages is still named for bathing lagadaga in Old Norse, washing day, the entire household would engage in a proper wash. Water would be heated over the fire, and you would wash using a rough wool cloth and a simple soap made from animal fat and ash. In the summer, you'd bathe frequently in nearby streams or lakes. One English chronicler from the 13th century, John of Wallingford, complained bitterly that the Danish Viking men who had settled in England were far too popular with the local women, precisely because they combed their hair every day, bathed every Saturday, and changed their clothes frequently. In his eyes, your scandalous cleanliness was a form of unfair seduction. Beside your comb, your grooming kit contains a few other essential items. You have a small pair of bronze or iron tweezers. These aren't for shaping eyebrows, but for pulling out splinters, a common hazard of daily farm work, and perhaps for plucking stray beard hairs. And then there's a truly peculiar little object that archaeologists find in almost every Viking grave, male and female alike. A small, long-handled metal spoon-like instrument. For years, scholars debated its purpose. Was it a ritual object? A tool for eating something specific? The current, and most likely, theory is far more mundane and intimate. It was an ear spoon, used for the delicate and oddly satisfying task of scraping out earwax. The sheer ubiquity of these items tells you just how much you and your contemporaries cared about personal tidiness. Your clothes, too, are kept as clean as possible. The heavy, greasy wool of your tunic and cloak is naturally water resistant and doesn't need washing often, but undergarments made of linen are washed more frequently. Keeping your clothes in good repair is a constant task. You hand your tunic to your sister, pointing out a small tear near the hem. She'll take out a bone needle and thread spun from nettle fibres and mend it with neat, precise stitches. Cleanliness and tidiness are not just about vanity. In a world without modern medicine, basic hygiene is a form of preventative healthcare. Keeping your body and your surroundings clean helps to keep sickness at bay. So, as you finish your grooming, feeling the satisfying smoothness of your untangled hair and the comfort of clean skin, you are participating in a quiet act of self-respect and defiance against the grime and chaos of the world. You are not a savage. You are civilized, and you have the ear spoon to prove it. While your life is deeply rooted in the soil of your farm, you are not entirely cut off from the wider world. Just a few hours' walk or a short boat trip along the fjord is a place that feels like another universe entirely. It's a trading post, a seasonal market, or perhaps even one of the new, growing towns like Kaupang in Norway or Birka in Sweden. As you approach, the quiet sounds of the countryside are replaced by a rising hubbub. The clamour of 100 conversations in different tongues, the cry of gulls circling overhead, the clang of a blacksmith's hammer from a temporary stall, and the rhythmic thump of wooden mallets repairing a ship's hull. You have come here today not as a farmer, but as a merchant for the day. Your family has a surplus this year. A few finely woven bolts of woolen cloth. Your mother and sisters spent the winter making, a small sack of dried fish, and the prize item a large yellowed walrus tusk, acquired from a relative who sailed north on a hunting expedition. This tusk, known as ivory of the north, is a luxury good highly prized in the lands to the south. You push your way through the crowd. The place is a dizzying swirl of sights and smells. You see hardy Norse traders like yourself, their longships and smaller Nas, the wider, sturdier cargo ships spooled up on the beach. But you also see other faces. A swarthy merchant from Frisia, his boat laden with barrels of fine Rhenish wine and high-quality glass vessels. A Sami trader from the far north, cloaked in reindeer fur, offering rare pelts and intricately carved bone objects. Perhaps you even see a traveller who has come all the way from the great city of Miklagard, Constantinopolis, Stall, laden with shimmering silks and exotic spices that smell like nothing you've ever encountered. One of the most fascinating debates among historians is just how far the average Viking travelled for trade versus how much was passed along through a chain of intermediaries. Did you meet the Arab merchant yourself, or did you get his silver dirham coins from a Swedish trader who met him in Russia? Your task is to turn your goods into things your family cannot produce themselves. First, and most importantly, is salt. You find a merchant selling huge, crystalline blocks of salt mined in Germany or Poland. It's expensive, but absolutely essential for preserving meat and fish for the winter. You engage in the time-honoured tradition of haggling. There is no fixed currency. While foreign silver coins are used, they are valued by weight, not by denomination. You and the merchant will use a small, portable set of balance scales. You will snip off pieces of silver from coins or from hack silver bracelets and other jewellery literally hacked into pieces until you reach an agreed upon weight. This bullion economy is practical, if a bit clumsy. With the salt secured, you move on. You admire a Frankish sword. Its steel far superior to your local iron, but it is wildly beyond your means. Instead, you trade a bolt of cloth for a set of Rhenish glass beads for your mother, their colours deep and beautiful. You barter the dried fish for a new whetstone from the mountains, its fine grit perfect for sharpening your tools. The big trade is the walrus tusk. You find a merchant who deals in high-value goods. He examines the tusk, weighs it, and makes you an offer. A substantial amount of silver and something elsey small, but perfectly made, iron pot. This is a huge upgrade from the heavy, unwieldy soapstone pots your family sometimes uses. You see goods from all over the known world. Amber from the Baltic coast. A substance you believe has magical properties. Hides and furs from the vast forests. Slaves, or thralls captives, from raids or people in debt being sold alongside livestock. Soapstone vessels from the Shetland Islands, easy to carve and resistant to heat. It's a dizzying display of a vast and interconnected economic network. You are just one small node in a system that stretches from the Arctic shores of Norway down the rivers of Russia to the Byzantine Empire and the Abbasid Caliphate. That silver coin you just accepted might have been minted in Baghdad a generation ago and passed through a dozen hands to reach this muddy beach on a Scandinavian fjord. As the day ends, you pack your new acquisitions carefully. You have traded the fruits of your family's labour wool, fish, and bone for the necessities and small luxuries that will make your life easier and a little richer. You feel a sense of accomplishment. You haven't swung a sword or sailed to a foreign shore, but you have engaged in the other great Viking activity, commerce. You have participated in the bustling, multicultural, and surprisingly sophisticated world of trade that is just as central to your identity as the farm you are now heading home to. You return from the bustling market not to rest, but to witness and perhaps assist in one of the most tedious, essential, and symbolically charged tasks of the household, weaving. While the men's work often takes them out into the fields or the sea, the world of textile production is the undisputed domain of women, and it is a labour of Herculean proportions. To make enough cloth for a single tunic requires hundreds of hours of work, from the initial processing of the fleece to the final stitch. The process begins months before you ever see a loom. After the sheep are shorn in the spring, the raw wool is dirty, greasy, and full of burrs and bits of vegetable matter. The women of the household spend days cleaning it, washing it in buckets of lye soap and water, and then picking it clean by hand, a mind-numbing task. Once clean and dry, the wool is carded, combed between two-tooth paddles to align the fibres and prepare them for spinning. Then comes the spinning itself. You will almost never see a woman in the longhouse with idle hands. As she walks, as she minds the children, as she stirs the stew, she will likely have a drop spindle in hand. This is a simple tool. A weighted stick, the spindle, and a separate stick holding the carded wool, the distaff. With a practiced flick of her fingers, she sets the spindle spinning, and with her other hand, she skillfully draws out the wool fibres, letting the twist of the spindle form them into a strong, even thread. It's a hypnotic, seemingly effortless motion that belies the immense skill required to produce a thread that is not too thick, not too thin, and that won't break under tension, is an art form. It takes thousands upon thousands of these small spinning motions to produce enough thread for a single garment. Today, the great loom has been set up in the longhouse. It is not the horizontal loom you might imagine, but a vertical warp-weighted loom, a distinctively Scandinavian piece of technology. Two large upright beams lean against a wall with a crossbeam at the top. The vertical threads, the warp, are tied to this top beam, but instead of being secured at the bottom, they are tied in small bunches to a row of heavy stones, often simple fist-sized river rocks with natural holes in them, which archaeologists find in profusion. These are the loom weights, and they provide the tension necessary for weaving. Your sister is at the loom. Her task is to pass the horizontal thread, the weft, back and forth between the warp threads. To do this, she doesn't use a flying shuttle. She uses a simple wooden shuttle, or even just a ball of thread, passing it from one hand to the other through the gap created by a system of heddle rods that she manipulates to lift alternating sets of warp threads. After each pass of the weft, she takes a weaving sword a long flat piece of polished wood, or bone-end, beats the new thread upwards, packing it tightly against the previously woven row to create a dense, strong fabric. Thump, thump, thump. The sound is a dull, rhythmic heartbeat that provides a steady cadence to the work inside the longhouse. It is excruciatingly slow and physically demanding work. Standing for hours, constantly moving your arms and body to pass the weft and beat it into place is exhausting. The patterns can be surprisingly complex. While most everyday cloth is simple tabby weave, women also create intricate diamond twills and herringbone patterns, adding texture and strength to the fabric. They use wool from different coloured sheep white, black, grey, brown to create natural checks and stripes. They can also use dyes made from plants to create vibrant colours. Yellow from weld, blue from woad, red from madder, which was an expensive imported good. A brightly coloured garment is a status symbol, a clear display of wealth. One of the deepest scholarly debates surrounds the mythological connection to this work. The Norns, the female beings who rule the destiny of gods and men, were often depicted as weavers. They weave the thread of each person's life, and when they cut the thread, that person dies. Fate itself, in your worldview, is a woven fabric. When your sister stands at the loom, patiently building a piece of cloth, thread by thread, she is not just making a blanket. In a metaphorical sense, she is echoing the work of the gods. She is a creator. A shaper, the Old Norse word for creator, is skopiend. This connection imbues her tedious work with a deep, almost sacred significance. It's no wonder that weaving swords and loom weights are often found in female graves. They are the tools of her trade, but also the symbols of her creative and fateful power. You watch her work, her body swaying in a slow dance with the loom, and you understand that the cloth that keeps you warm is not just a product of labour, but of a patience and artistry that borders on the divine. As the evening deepens and the world outside becomes a realm of impenetrable blackness, your thoughts may turn from the tangible world of tools and textiles to the invisible world that surrounds you. Your relationship with the gods Odin, Thor, Freya, and the rest of the Aesir and Veneris, important, but it's often a distant one. You might offer a sacrifice to Thor for protection on a journey, or to Frey for a good harvest, especially at the great seasonal feasts. But your daily spiritual life is much more intimate, more local, and more superstitious. It is focused on the spirits of the land and the home, the unseen forces that have a direct and immediate impact on your life. Before settling down for the night, you might perform a small, almost unconscious ritual. You take a small piece of the bread, left over from the day's meal, and place it on a particular stone near the hearth. Or you pour a small amount of ale onto the roots of the massive old tree that grows in your yard. This isn't for Odin. This is for the Hnefatafl, the spirits of the land. You believe that the land itself, your farm, the surrounding hills, the forests, the riversys, inhabited by these supernatural beings, they are the guardians of the place, its original inhabitants. You are merely a guest. To live a prosperous life, you must remain on good terms with them. Offending them, by being wasteful, polluting a stream, or not showing proper respect, could lead to failed crops, sick livestock, or endless bad luck. These small daily offerings are a sign of respect, a form of rent paid to your unseen landlords. Inside the longhouse itself, there are other beings to consider. There is a belief in a household spirit, a sort of domestic guardian that is sometimes called a tomp or nis in later folklore, though the exact Viking Age term is debated by scholars. This being is tied to the farmstead itself, a protector of the family and its animals. It is generally benevolent, but can be mischievous or even vengeful if not treated with respect. Leaving out a bowl of porridge with a pat of butter on toper, significant luxuries, a common way to keep the household spirit happy and ensure it continues to watch over your family while you sleep. You don't necessarily worship this spirit. You simply acknowledge its presence and coexist with it through a system of mutual respect and reciprocity. Your worldview is steeped in what modern observers might call superstition, but to you, it is simply how the world works. Certain things are lucky, and others are deeply unlucky. Spitting into the hearth is a terrible insult to the spirits of the home. Stepping over a weapon lying on the ground is bad form and could drain its power. The direction a raven flies, the appearance of a certain animal on your path, these are all potential omens, messages from the unseen world that must be interpreted carefully. You believe in magic, or seither, a powerful and somewhat fearsome form of magic most often associated with women, particularly the goddess Freya. A Völva, a female seer or sorceress, is a figure of immense power and fear, someone who can communicate with spirits, see the future, and cast potent spells. A quirky, and to a modern mind, slightly unnerving aspect of your belief system is the active role of the dead. Ancestors are not gone. They are simply in another place, and they continue to take a keen interest in the affairs of their living descendants. You believe they dwell within their burial mounds, the great earthen humps that dot the landscape. These mounds are sacred places. You might go to your great-grandfather's burial mound to seek wisdom or guidance in a time of crisis. The idea that the dead can walk again the Draugries, also a very real fear. Unlike a modern ghost, a Draugr is a corporeal, physical being, an animated corpse with superhuman strength and a malevolent hatred for the living. The sagas are full of terrifying stories of heroes having to physically battle these undead ancestors to put them back to rest. So, as you go about your final evening chores, your mind is not just on the practical tasks. Every action is layered with a second, deeper meaning. You close the door not just to keep out the cold, but to bar the entry of malevolent spirits. You bank the fire not just for safety, but to show respect for its central sacred role in the home. Your spiritual life is not compartmentalized into a single day of the week or a specific building. It is woven into the very fabric of your existence, a constant, low-level awareness of the other world that coexists with your own. It's a world where a misplaced word can bring bad luck, and a bowl of porridge can secure a guardian's favour. The fire has been banked for the night, casting a low, hypnotic glow throughout the longhouse. The small tasks are finished, the tools are put away, the weaving is paused, the grooming is complete. A contented quiet settles over the hall, broken only by the soft snores of those who have already succumbed to sleep and the gentle crackle of the embers. This is the moment. Nestled between the end of the day's work and the oblivion of sleep, that is perfect for one last activity, the telling of tales. Tonight is a special night. A skald, a professional poet and storyteller is a guest in your longhouse, and his payment for his lodging and food is his art. He sits on a stool of honour near the fire, a cup of ale in his hand. He is more than just an entertainer, he is a keeper of history, a celebrity, a living library. The most famous skalds are attached to the courts of kings and jarls, where their job is to compose elaborate poems praising their patrons' victories, generosity, and genealogy. A good skald can make a chieftain immortal. A scornful one can destroy his reputation forever. This visiting skald may not be so grand, but he has a trove of stories, and tonight he will share one. He takes a final sip of ale, clears his throat, and begins. His voice is strong and rhythmic, falling into the complex alliterative verse of skaldic poetry. This isn't simple storytelling. It's a highly structured, technically demanding art form. Each line must have a certain number of syllables and a fixed pattern of alliteration, where multiple words begin with the same sound. For instance, a line might be something like, "Swords swung, shattering shields." But the true hallmark of the skaldic art, and what makes it both bewildering and brilliant, is the use of kennings and heiti. A heiti is a poetic synonym. Instead of saying man, he might say warrior or berserker. Simple enough, but a kenning is a metaphorical compound phrase. It's a riddle. Instead of saying the sea, the Skald might call it the whale road. A warrior is a feeder of ravens. A sword is a wound serpent. Gold is the dragon's hoard, or the tears, Freya. And these can be nested. A ship, which is a horse of the waves, could be referred to with a kenning like seahorse, making a warrior on that ship the rider of the seahorse. The complexity can be mind-boggling, a puzzle for the listener. To understand the poem, you have to decode these kennings as the Skald speaks them. It requires immense concentration and a deep, shared cultural vocabulary. The debate among scholars is fierce. Was this complexity a way of showing off intellectual prowess? Or did it have a deeper magical function, where naming something in a roundabout way gave the poet power over it? Tonight, he is not reciting a poem of praise, but is telling one of the great heroic sagas, perhaps the saga of the Volsungs. He tells of Sigurd, the great hero, of the cursed ring of Andvari, and of the mighty dragon, Fafnir, who guards a mountain of gold. His voice drops to a conspiratorial whisper as he describes the dragon's lair, then rises to a roar as he enacts the moment Sigurd thrusts his sword, Gram, into the beast's soft underbelly. You and the other listeners lean in, captivated. Your own life may be one of farming and chores, but in this moment you are there with Sigurd. You can smell the dragon's venom, feel the heat of its fiery breath, see the glint of the endless gold. He doesn't use props or a stage. The theatre is in your mind, painted by his words alone. The flickering firelight casts long dancing shadows on the walls, and it's easy to imagine they are the shapes of dragons and heroes. He recounts Sigurd, roasting the dragon's heart, and, upon tasting its magical blood, gaining the ability to understand the language of birds, who warn him of the treacherous plotting of his companion, Regin. This blending of the heroic with the magical and the mundane is the essence of your people's stories. Heroes are great, but they are also vulnerable to trickery. Magic is real, and it can be a tool or a trap. He speaks for over an hour, his memory a seemingly bottomless well. The sagas you hear are the bedrock of your identity. They are filled with your ancestors, people you believe to be your ancestors. They contain complex family trees, property disputes, legal battles fought at the Thing, and long perilous sea voyages. They are your entertainment, but they are also your history lessons and your law books. They reinforce your values: courage in the face of impossible odds, the importance of keeping one's word, and the inescapable nature of fate, or word. The story ends, but the images linger in your mind. The fire has burned low, and a sleepy silence has reclaimed the hall. The Skald's performance is over, but the story is now a part of you, a fresh deposit in the great treasury of tales you hold in your own memory, ready to be told again on another long dark night. The Skald's last words hang in the air, a final, fading echo in the deep quiet of the hall. The spell is broken. People begin to stir, shaking off the trance of the story. A collective sigh seems to pass through the longhouse, the sound of a community returning to the present moment. It is truly time for sleep. There are no pyjamas to change into, no teeth to be brushed with minty paste. The transition from waking to sleeping is simple and swift. You check on the fire one last time, ensuring the embers are safely contained within the hearth, glowing just enough to provide a tiny spark of warmth and life through the night. The risk of fire in this wooden, thatch-roofed house is an ever-present fear, and banking the fire properly is the most important safety measure you know. You make your way back to the raised wooden platform that is your bed. Your mattress of straw-filled sacking rustles as you lie down, the faint, dry scent of it familiar and comforting. You don't remove your woolen tunic. You will sleep in the same clothes you wore all day for warmth. You simply pull the heavy furs and sheepskins up over you, creating a warm, dark cocoon against the persistent chill that creeps in through the walls. Your father is already asleep nearby, a low, rumbling snore signalling his deep exhaustion. Your mother murmurs something to a restless child on the other side of you, her voice a soft, reassuring whisper. The sounds of the household settling down are the final lullaby. The air in the longhouse is thick and still. The smells of wood smoke, old wool, and sleeping humanity are the scent of your world at rest. From the far end of the hall, you hear the soft stirring of the livestock, a low moo from the cow, a sleepy bleat from a sheep. The nearness of the animals, which would seem strange and unhygienic to an outsider, feels profoundly reassuring to you. Their presence is a symbol of wealth, of sustenance, of the continuity of life. Their gentle, rhythmic breathing is a quiet promise of milk in the morning and another season of survival. You lie on your back, staring up into the impenetrable darkness where the roof should be. You can't see the great wooden beams or the layers of turf and thatch above them, but you know they are there, a solid shield against the vast, cold emptiness of the night sky. Your body aches with a deep, satisfying weariness. Your muscles feel heavy, used. You think back, over the day, the cold shock of the morning air, the rhythmic pull of milking the cow, the unending toil in the field, the concentration of carving the spoon, the heady excitement of the market, the satisfying weight of the new iron pot. It was not a day of grand adventure. No raids were launched, no great battles fought. It was a day, like almost every other day, a link in the long repeating chain of the seasons. Historians might never record your name. No runestone will be raised to commemorate your life of quiet labour. Your existence is defined by the simple, profound, and unending rhythm of work, family, and survival. You are not a warrior hero from the sagas, but your life has its own form of quiet heroism. The endurance to face another frozen morning, the patience to mend another fence, the skill to make something useful with your own hands, the resilience to wrest a living from an unforgiving land. You feel sleep beginning to pull you under. The scattered sounds of the longhouse begin to merge and fade. Your mind lets go of the day's worries and the heroic deeds of Sigurd. Your thoughts dissolve. The last thing you are aware of is the slow, steady rhythm of your own breathing joining the gentle chorus of the sleeping household. You have done the work. You have helped your family. You are safe. You are home. And tomorrow you will wake in the smoky darkness and do it all over again. And now, as our own journey through a Viking day comes to its gentle close, allow the images to soften and drift away. Let the flickering firelight of the longhouse fade into a warm, distant glow. The rough texture of the woolen blankets, the faint scent of wood smoke, the low murmur of sleeping souls. Let them all become part of the background, a gentle tapestry that swaddles your own descending consciousness. There are no more chores to be done, no more fields to be ploughed, no more stories to be told. The endless, cyclical work of that long ago time is finished for the night, and your own work of rest is ready to begin. Feel the weight of your own body, safe and secure in your own bed, a comfort unimaginable to the person whose life we have just glimpsed. The profound quiet of the Scandinavian night can be your quiet now. Let the gentle rhythm of your own breathing guide you further down, into the deep, restorative peace that awaits. There is nothing else you need to do, nothing to think about. Just sink into the soft darkness and let the gentle current of sleep carry you away. The story is over. It is time to rest.